Hey guys, welcome to my Atlantic Division preview series. I'm going to be previewing the seventh team that I have in the NHL, and that's the Detroit Red Wings. So this was a close one for me between Ottawa and Detroit, and ultimately I ended up going with Detroit here just because I don't know if Erik Karlsson is going to be traded, and if Erik Karlsson is traded, which it seems to be likely, then Ottawa is probably the worst team in the league and is handing the first overall pick over to Colorado and Jack Hughes. So moving on to Detroit, they're coming off missing the playoffs. I believe they finished bottom five. I have them finishing seventh, missing again, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. They ended up in the draft with Philip Zadina, who's obviously a steal at number six. Although he's not a perfect player, that's for sure. So I think the gap between a guy like Zadina and a guy like Kakadiemi isn't as big as people, especially Detroit fans, make it out to be. People think that Zadina was a slam dunk number three pick in the draft. However, I could see an argument being made for Kakadiemi. He's a really good player in his own right, and I actually had Quinn Hughes in that range as well, which might surprise some people, but if you watch Quinn Hughes, he's absolutely incredible. I also like Barrett Hayton as well. I'm not sure if I would have taken him at number five, but anyways. Henrik Zetterberg is a huge loss for them offensively and defensively because it looks like as of yesterday he's not going to be playing this season because of back issues. He hasn't had any time to train. Um, and I think that he's still at his age one of the best two-way players in the game. If you look at his goals above replacement comparables for last season, there were guys like I believe he produced something like 12 goals above replacement, which is similar to guys like Stamkos, and that just goes to show how good Zetterberg is even at his age. But I'm not sure if Detroit actually wanted to be competitive next season or not. But either way, if they were trying to be competitive, Zetterberg is a huge loss for them. And I still think he's a really good player. But if you look at his cap friendly page, you'd see why he's only going to be paid what $3 million this season, $1 million next season, and then $1 million the season after that. So it's worth it to just sit out and kind of take and he's already earned a good portion of the contract or the vast majority of his contract already. So I think Larkin will be the number one center on this team, although I think he's much better suited as a second line center. He has really good speed. He's developed into a decent two-way player. I just don't think that the offensive upside will make him anything more than a 65-ish to 70-ish point player in his prime, which is a good second line, a good first line player if you look at the production alone. However, I think that he's going to be fed a lot of power play time, really good line mates, and I think that 65 to 70 points won't be representative of the player that he is. If he's a second line player on your team, then that's a Stanley Cup contending team. However, Detroit doesn't have that luxury right now, so he's the first line center, and he's not a bad player at all. I think he's a really good player. Anthony Mantha is a good player. Phillips should make the team, in my opinion. He was an incredible value there, sixth overall. Thomas Vanek is a guy that I think is incredibly underrated. He produces anywhere that he is, and a team like Columbus, they really seem to pick up on the trends that, um, they picked up Gagne a little while ago for the fourth line, and then they picked up Vanek in a depth role, and picking up guys like Vanek and Gagne are really, really important to your team because they don't get a ton of ice time, but they produce like really, really good players, and their veteran presences, they play right, and Thomas Vanek, if you look at his scoring per hour, it's a really, really good pace, and he's still a decent offensive player, and at the price tag, I really like it. And you can move him at the deadline, like he's always traded at the deadline. I like Franz Nielsen, although he's declining. He's probably a third line center at this point, but he's a pretty good one. Athanasiou is pretty good. He's an incredible. I mean, his speed is just absolutely insane. And Nyquist make up the third line. That's a pretty decent third line. Has a good mix of two-way play, speed, creativity, and offense. That's not a problem on them. I've grown on Rasmussen a little bit. I didn't like that pick in ninth overall last season. However, watching him a little bit more, I think he could make the World Junior team this year for Team Canada. And he's much better than I thought he was going to be, which was a third line center. I think he could be a second line center in the future or a winger. And that's obviously better than a third line center, which is what I projected him to be at the draft. I think Svechnikov is kind of meh. I don't really like him, and I don't really like Chalowski either. I think that he's a decent puck mover, but I don't think he has the IQ to be anything more than if he reaches the potential at number four. So looking at the defense, they might have the worst defense in the league. It's horrid. It's really really bad, like really really bad. Green is okay, but he's a second pairing. He's probably a number four, number five at this point, and Cornwell's a good third pairing guy, but other than that, it's guys like Erickson and Daly who are past their prime, and I don't know if they were even good in their prime, but they're not very good anymore. Goaltending doesn't give me much confidence either. I don't have any confidence in either Howard or Bernier for any sustained period of time. Looking at their possession metrics, they're all pretty horrendous. In terms of their possession stats, Corsi 4 percentage 48.74, which is 21st. Corsi 4 per 60, 46.95, 27th. Corsi against per 60, 49.3, which is 14th. And their on ice goal results were 2.13 goals for per 60, which is 24th. 2.34 goals against per 60, which is 19th. So they didn't score a lot of goals at all, and they allowed a bunch of them. So that's not really what you want to see if you're trying to be a competitive team. Expected goals 2.15, which is 24th in NHL. Expected goals against 2.28, which is 17th. So I'm not sure whether this has to do. It definitely does have to do with the personnel because the D just isn't skilled enough to get the puck to the forwards quick enough. But it also could be a systems issue. I don't know how good Blashill is as a coach. I know a lot of Red Wings fans complain about him, but which fan base is really happy with their coach, to be honest? Um, so yeah, that has a bit to do with both, I think, systems and personnel. I just don't think that the D are good enough to, or skilled enough or competent enough to move the puck quickly to the forwards, and the forwards do have decent speed. PDO was 19th at 99.68, and penalty differential -9, which is 20th. The most important player, obviously, Dylan Larkin. I think that with Zetterberg gone, he could reach 65, 70 points this season, actually. Being fed a lot of power play time. He should play on the PK as well. He seems like an all situations type player, and that would really help his growth. And the least important player is definitely Erickson. He's one of the worst defenders in the NHL and gets a ton of minutes for whatever reason. I was looking to put a guy like Advocator here. I don't think he's very good at all. But yeah, so I think that they're going to finish seventh in the Atlantic Division. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. A couple more years of rebuilding, collecting prospects. I know I love them picking Veleno at 30th. And I even loved picking a guy like Jonathan Berggren early in the second round. I think both those players are really, really good players. I was a huge fan of a guy like Berggren. I wouldn't have minded if the Leafs took him at like the 29th pick, and getting him early in the second round. I think he's a first round type talent. So I really, really like that player. So Detroit's looking good for the future. If they can stay away from signing guys like Abdelkader and guys like Mike Green to long-term extensions, or even guys like Jonathan Bernier, I don't know what that was about. They'll be a decent team for the future. So thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the last Atlantic Division preview video.